My name is JC, and I am.
Hey everybody, it's me, Son of Thunder underscore YT. Today we will be interviewing Billy Parker from Parker's Barbecue Restaurant. So I'm excited to see what he has to say about some of my questions, and here's the time lapse of the trip. Hi, I'm Son of Thunder, and I'm here with Billy Parker, asking him questions about his business and ministry. So
Glad to be here.
Okay. So number one, please would you tell us something you would like us to know about Parker's Barbecue?
Well, JC, I tell you, we've been in business for over 50 years now, and I think a lot of people don't realize in this area we are the oldest family-owned independent restaurant in the city of Greenville. So, out of all, and there's a lot of restaurants. I think in Pitt County alone, there's over 600 and some odd restaurants. So that's a little unknown for some people. They don't realize how long we've been around. Parker's Barbecue on Memorial Drive was our first store, and that's where we got started. And then we opened up a second store in 1986. That's on Greenville Boulevard, and then we opened up a third store on Arlington Boulevard about 3 years ago. So we've kind of grown over the years, but we haven't changed. And when I say that, we haven't changed recipes, we haven't changed who we are. We have changed some processes and the way we do business a little bit. We used to not take credit cards. For the longest time, for over 40 years, we only took cash. So it's only in the last 6 or 7 years that we started taking credit cards, which was, some people would laugh at that because everybody's used to paying with plastic, right? So when we started taking plastic, it was a big culture shock for us because we didn't know any of the ins and outs of credit cards, debit cards. So it was a big learning curve for us. One thing that we did as well is we added drive-throughs to two of our stores. And we're not Chick-fil-A, we're not McDonald's, we're not, a big chain restaurant. So all those chains, like Chick-fil-A is based out of Atlanta, all they got to do when they open up a new store is call corporate. Corporate sends them this big book that just teaches them at that store how to run a great drive-through. Same thing with McDonald's. They call New York, they call corporate headquarters and say, we're opening up a new store. We need you to send some people and send the materials of all your processes and policies, and then they have a great drive-through. So when we opened up our drive-through, we didn't know what we were doing. So what we did, we tried to emulate McDonald's and Chick-fil-A because we think that they have the best drive-throughs, and we think the edge goes to Chick-fil-A because of their hospitality and just the way they do business is a great model for us.
Well, I am noticing you're talking about McDonald's and Chick-fil-A, but I can tell you, your chicken better than any of them. I'm serious. It's awesome.
Well, you're very kind. We work very hard at it. We do. We work very hard at it.
In what ways are you using your business to witness to people about Jesus Christ?
That's a great question. We call this our workplace ministry. So for us, we went through this process of figuring out a more formal mission statement for our company. And we've always had like a mission and we've always had core values, but we hadn't publicized those. We always tried to use our business as a ministry in different ways. For instance, if we had a customer who we knew maybe had a death in their family, we would always send food and try to bless them in that way because our food is just good comfort food, right? It's good food when you're celebrating something in a happy environment, and it's also good food when you just need comfort in the event of a death in the family. So we've always done our part in giving back, but me and my wife really got convicted probably about 7, 8 years ago. Gosh, maybe even a little longer now, but at least 7, 8 years ago, about formalizing our mission statement and figuring out, okay, what are we doing on a day-to-day basis to use our company to impact the kingdom for Christ? And so when businesses ask those questions to themselves, it really takes you back a little bit, because a lot of people compartmentalize their faith and their work, right? I mean, some churches, they have church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. And some folks go to all those services. And some churches just have church on Sunday morning. Some churches just have church on Sunday morning and Sunday night. And a lot of people are like, all right, I'm really going to be strong in my faith on those times that I'm in church. But I separate work and my faith, right? And then the reality of that is we should be intertwining our work and our faith. You know, we go to church and we grow in our faith and we grow spiritually so we can apply those things in our everyday life. And for us, there's no bigger platform to minister and to impact people for Christ and impact the kingdom than the 3 stores that we have, right? We have customers that come in every day. So we asked ourselves that hard question. What are we doing on a day-to-day basis to impact the kingdom for Jesus Christ? And for every business, that looks differently. Some businesses, they want to separate that, right? They don't want to intertwine their faith in their business because it may turn people off. The reality is, for all of us that are Christians, nothing belongs to us. You know, Parker's Barbecue originated in Wilson, North Carolina with my uncles back in the late 40s. And I guarantee you, my uncles that started Parker's Barbecue in Wilson had no idea the impact that they were going to have directly and indirectly with helping my father and grandfather get started with this store years later. They had no idea how they were going to be able to impact the kingdom. Because I know that wasn't their intent when they first opened up Parker's Barbecue. But looking 50 years down the road from when we first got started, we have a pretty good workplace ministry here. So in asking those hard questions, we're like, what can we do? What can Parker's Barbecue do on a day-to-day basis? Well, one thing that we do is we formalized, and you'll see this behind me, a mission statement. And our mission is to impact our employees, our vendors, and our customers through Christ-like service in a way that feeds them both physically and spiritually. And then we adopted a company verse, which is 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whatsoever you do, whatsoever you eat, drink, whatever you do it all for the glory of God. And then we developed some strong core values that we feel like that if our employees live into these core values each and every day in the way that they serve people, that people will not only be impacted in a positive way, hopefully in a spiritual way, but they'll want to come back and eat with us, right? So our core values are integrity, making a difference, passion, appreciation, communication, and teamwork. So if you got the acronym there, take the first letters, it spells the word impact. So once we formalized our mission statement, and once we formalized our core values, and once we formalized a verse, a company verse that encapsulates what we're trying to accomplish, we're like, okay, now we need to kind of spread that throughout the company and see if we can develop a culture of ministry. Every day we fail. Every day is tough because it's hard to live in. It's a pretty ambitious mission statement to give Christ-like service with everybody that you serve. We'll serve 16,000 people a week between all 3 stores. So those are all opportunities to touch people in different ways. So you're going back to your question, what have we done to use our business? Well, first, developing this, because we got to have something that we can reference each and every day. What do we bounce everything off of? Well, we bounce it off our mission statement. So in looking a little more forward with that, we give out devotion books. We have a devotion book ministry. So every year for the past 8-9 years, we have distributed over 15,000 daily bread devotion books every year. So we give those away for free. Even in our drive-thrus, we have a little sign that says, ask about our free daily bread. It's kind of false advertising, but it's okay. Because people say, well, hey, I want my hush puppies and I want my corn sticks. And we're like, no. It's daily bread. And it's a devotion book. And some people are like, no, I don't, I'm good. And some people take it because they don't want to be rude. And some people are like really appreciative. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's great. So that's one thing that we do. Another thing we do is for our company, for our 3 restaurants, we have a corporate chaplain. And you may say, well, what is a corporate chaplain? Well, if you think the military has a chaplain, a lot of pro sports teams, they have a team chaplain. Well, we have something similar here, and it's a corporate chaplain for our company. So what does he do for us? Well, he's on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for each and every employee in our company. Some things that he kind of concentrates on. His biggest thing is to build relationships. And as he builds relationships, with permission, there'll be times that he has opportunities to share Jesus with. So as he builds relationships, he's there for employees if they're having trouble with a child, or if they have a sick loved one, or if somebody's in the hospital, or if they've had a death in the family. He makes hospital visits just like a pastor at your church would make, to go see our employees or an employee's family member. And as you can imagine, as he develops relationships, our corporate chaplain, it becomes really close with our employees. And it really makes a difference, because there's going to be things going on in their lives that they're not going to talk to the owners about. They're not even going to talk to their managers about it. But they know that whatever they talk to the chaplain about is in confidence. And some employees will talk to the chaplain about things they wouldn't even talk to their pastor about, because they're just worried, that the pastor of the church, there may be a sermon on that the next Sunday, you know what I mean? So, but most pastors are great at keeping everything in confidence. But because there's no other relationship other than him just being in the workplace, there's more of a comfort level sharing a lot of personal things. So here's some stats for you. Since our chaplain's been here, and our chaplain's been here around 10 years, he has led or helped people reconnect to their faith, over 260 people. So 200 people have either come to Christ or reconnected with Christ since he's been here as our chaplain. So our biggest impact in ministry at Parker's Barbecue has definitely been our chaplain. He's been amazing. And then we try to supplement that in different ways. We have, of course, the devotion book ministry. Once a year, we have we call it our vendor event. So everybody we buy supplies from the guy we buy ketchup from the guy we buy pigs from, the guy we buy chickens from, the guy that's our accountant, the guy that we buy styrofoam and paper, you name it. Anybody we write a check to during the course of a year, we invite them to an event at Christmas time. We feed them for free. We usually give out devotion books, and we have our corporate chaplain give a message at that event. Because all during the year, we have relationships with our vendors, and that circles back to our mission statement, right? We want to have an impact on our vendors, our customers, and our employees. So that is a way that we can kind of touch our vendors in trying to reach them for Christ as well. And we encourage them to do things ministry-wise in their business. So I would say for us, those are some of the bigger things. Our chaplain has visited people in the hospital that we've sent him, customers in the hospital, and he has led some of our customers to Christ in the hospital that have been sick. So I'll tell you a story. You never know what people are going through, right? So we had a situation, this was a few years back, where we were about to close, excuse me, and we had some young waiters, and we had a group come in of about 10 people, and this was like 15 minutes before closing time. So of course all the young waiters were like, oh man, you can just see it in their countenance, right? Their body language. They're like, we're ready to go home. And of course I greeted them, hey, come on in, glad to have you, and sat them at the other end of the restaurant. They were by themselves. And I explained to the waiter, hey, look, they just came from the hospital. They had all these hospital stickers, room such and such. And so we comped them some free desserts. And towards the end of the meal, one of the guys got up. And he came up to the counter to pay, and I was asking him. And all the waiters were standing right there. And this goes to show you never know what people are going through when they walk through your door or when you encounter them on the street. So I asked him, hey, how's everything going? I noticed you came from the hospital. And he said, you see that man down there? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, we just came from the hospital. His pastor's down there. Some of the men from his church are down there. Apparently, this man and his wife were at the beach, at Atlantic Beach. His wife had some type of stroke incident on the beach. They airlifted her to Vidant. She had been at Vidant a few days, and there was nothing they could do for her. And they came to our restaurant at 8:15 at night with his pastor and those men to sit down and have a meal to decide if he was going to take his wife off life support that night. So how important is it for us trying to impact somebody in a positive way, to give great hospitality, to love on them, to make sure their experience is good, to make sure that our attitude is good, not acting like we're ready to go home, but acting like, hey, thank you, and appreciating them for coming in. And they made that decision to take his wife off life support that night in our restaurant. They came here. They didn't use the chapel at the hospital. They came here because they wanted comfort food, and they wanted service, and they wanted to be in a place where they could eat a good meal and be comfortable. You never know who's coming around that drive-through. You never know who's walking in that up to that to-go counter. You never know who's coming into one of our dining rooms. So the opportunity to impact people for Christ here is way more than most churches. Because at churches, you get people that they're already Christians, right? For the most part. In a business owner has more chances to impact people for Christ than anybody. And I think that's what's missing sometimes with business owners. I think we miss the boat sometimes, not realizing that. Because here's the reality for all of us. One day you may own your own business. You may own your own television network. You're doing interviews and you're doing all this stuff. You're going to have your own YouTube channel and build that thing. And you're going to have your circle of influence, right? And your ways to impact people. The reality for Parker's Barbecue is we have 3 locations. They're all center block and brick. And we serve barbecue and chicken each and every day. But the reality is it never belonged to my father and grandfather who started this business. And now it doesn't belong to me and my wife. The reality is it belongs to Jesus. It belongs to God. This is God's business. And he allows us to steward this business while we're alive. So when you think of it that way, that everything we have belongs to God, and you start rolling that around in your head a little bit, right? I mean, it kind of convicts you that, okay, what am I doing with God's resources? God's allowing me to make a living. God's allowing me to feed my kids through this company that he's allowing me to steward. What am I doing through this company to impact the kingdom for him? So when we started really thinking about diving into those questions as a company, it convicted us to do things. And of course, some of the things I mentioned before are the bigger things that we've done. And then we try to have ministry touches along the way. But that is a long answer to a short question, so I apologize for the long answer.
It's okay. I noticed a picture of you and Phil Robinson in the entrance of the restaurant. Did he give you any advice on cooking ducks, or any advice on making a TV show at all, or any advice in general?
We now have duck barbecue. I'm kidding, we don't.
The Duck Dynasty fans are now mad here.
Phil Robertson actually was the keynote speaker at a ministry event here in Greenville, and he spoke at the convention center. The folks that helped put on that event gave us the opportunity to cater that event for him.
But they
so
were smart.
They were smart. Yes, they were smart. So we had a chance to feed Phil Robertson and some of his family members, and the picture that you see, I had a chance to meet him and just speak to him briefly, like most people did at the event. But he did eat Parker's barbecue. He did enjoy it, but I didn't get a chance to speak to him long enough to seek any advice. He's got the TV thing figured out for sure, because he has a very successful show, and he has a huge ministry impact with the books, the TV show, and everything that he does, the speaking engagements. He's got it figured out. We're way behind Phil Robertson, but one day we may be there.
What advice would you have for other Christian businesses on how to share the gospel?
Well, I think about this. A lot of businesses, that is a foreign concept, sharing the gospel through your business. There is some apprehension there, because not knowing what your customers will think, but businesses have to get beyond that. Because once you start realizing that it's not your business to begin with, then it becomes pretty easier. You get more confident. You're like, hey, it's God's business. He's going to take care of whatever I try to do to impact the kingdom. So my advice to any business that is thinking about or contemplate ministry in the workplace, it's kind of like you eat an elephant. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So my advice would be to take one thing, one ministry idea, at whatever business it is. It could be, if they have a waiting room, it could be just having some New Testament Bibles in the waiting room for people to pick up, or a devotion book for people to pick up while they're just sitting there, along with some other magazines that they may have. It may be adopting a mission statement that is faith-based, referencing God in their mission statement. It may be a company verse and putting that on their receipts, because it may speak to somebody. Whatever it is, I would say, take one ministry idea and implement it and see how it goes. That would be my advice.
Well, thank you for doing this. Mr.
Hey,
Philly.
thank you so much. It's very nice to meet you. I appreciate all you're doing, and it's an honor to be on your program.
Well, thank you.
My name is JC, and I am a son of thunder.